The ship appeared without warning above Earth's atmosphere. It was massive, larger than any city the humans had ever built. Its metal surface gleamed silver in the sunlight, and strange symbols glowed along its sides. For 3 days, it simply waited there, silent as death. Jake Sullivan stood in the underground command center watching the screens that showed the alien vessel. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded fast. He had been a Navy pilot once, flying missions over dangerous skies. Now he found himself Earth's first contact coordinator, a job he never wanted and never trained for. "Any word from them yet?" asked Dr. Lisa Morgan as she entered the room. She carried a thick folder filled with scientific data about the ship above them. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes showed both excitement and fear. "Nothing," Jake replied. "They're just sitting up there, waiting." The command center buzzed with activity. Dozens of people worked at computers trying to understand the alien technology. Military officers spoke in quiet voices into their radios. Scientists studied every detail of the strange ship. Everyone knew that this moment would change everything, for humanity. On the 4th day, the aliens finally made contact. The message came through every radio, television, and computer on Earth at the same time. The voice was calm and spoke perfect English. "People of Earth, we are representatives of the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace to offer you membership in our alliance of worlds. We will send diplomats to meet with your leaders. Prepare a place for our arrival." The message ended as suddenly as it began. Jake looked at Lisa, and she looked back at him. Both knew what the other was thinking. This was not a request. It was a command. 2 hours later, 3 smaller ships descended from the massive vessel. They landed in a field outside the NORAD facility in Colorado, where Jake and his team waited. The ships were beautiful, shaped like teardrops and made of the same silver metal as the mothership. The first alien to emerge was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. He wore robes that seemed to shimmer and change color in the light. Behind him came a second alien, shorter and more human-like, but with golden skin that seemed to glow from within. The third was huge and muscular, covered in what looked like natural armor with 4 arms instead of 2. Jake stepped forward, his hands empty and visible. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Commander Jake Sullivan." The tall blue alien nodded slightly. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Velthian Empire. This is Diplomatic Advisor Quilin of the Meridian Collective and Military Observer Krex of the Gornaki Republic. We represent the Galactic Confederation." "We're honored by your visit," Jake said, though he wondered if that was really true. "We've prepared quarters for you in our facility. We hope you'll be comfortable." Zethkar looked around at the mountains and trees surrounding them. His expression was unreadable. "We do not require comfort. We require compliance. The Confederation has decided that Earth will join our alliance. We are here to arrange the terms of your integration." Lisa stepped up beside Jake. "Integration? What exactly does that mean?" The golden-skinned alien, Quilin, spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but somehow seemed to echo in their minds. "It means your species will be guided by those wiser and more advanced than yourselves. Your primitive governments will be dissolved. Your people will be relocated to planets better suited for your development. Earth's resources will be harvested for the greater good of the Confederation." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "And if we refuse?" The huge 4-armed alien Krex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Refusal is not an option. Your species has barely achieved faster-than-light communication. You have no weapons that could harm our ships. You have no choice but to accept." "Maybe," Jake said quietly. "But we'd like to make you an offer first." Zethkar's large eyes blinked slowly. "An offer? You have nothing we need." "Time," Jake replied. "Stay with us for a while. Learn about us before you decide our fate. We have food, shelter, and stories to share. Give us a chance to show you who we really are." The 3 aliens looked at each other. Jake could sense they were communicating in some way he couldn't understand. Finally, Zethkar spoke. This is highly irregular. The Confederation's decision has already been made. The Confederation made their decision without knowing us, Lisa said. Wouldn't it be better to make an informed choice? What harm could a few days do? Quylin tilted her head, studying the humans with curious eyes. You are not afraid of us. We're terrified, Jake admitted. But we're also curious. You've traveled across the galaxy to find us. The least we can do is offer you hospitality. While you're here, Krex snorted. Hospitality will not change the outcome. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But it might change how we get there. After another moment of silent communication, Zethkar nodded. 3 days. We will give you 3 days to present your case. Then we proceed with integration. Jake smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. 3 days it is, follow me. I'll show you to your quarters. And I think you'll find our coffee interesting. None of your species have ever tasted anything like it. As they walked toward the facility, Jake caught Lisa's eye. She raised an eyebrow and he shrugged slightly. 3 days wasn't much time to save their world, but it was a start. And something told him that these aliens were about to discover that humans were full of surprises. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Colorado mountains as the small group disappeared into the underground facility. High above them, the massive alien ship continued its silent watch, unaware that its carefully chosen diplomats were about to encounter something their advanced civilization had never prepared them for: the simple, dangerous power of human hospitality. The first morning began with coffee. Jake Sullivan carried 3 steaming mugs into the conference room where the alien diplomats waited. The room had been set up with Earth's best technology, but Jake had also added small touches that made it feel more human. A vase of wildflowers sat on the table and soft music played from hidden speakers. What is this? Zethkar asked, staring at the dark liquid Jake placed before him. Coffee, Jake replied. It's how we start most days on Earth. Try it. The Valthian ambassador lifted the mug with long, careful fingers. He sniffed the contents and made a face. It smells bitter. It is bitter, Jake agreed. But that's part of what makes it good. We add things to make it sweeter if we want, but many humans prefer it just as it is. Quylin touched her mug, but didn't drink. Your species enjoys consuming bitter substances? Sometimes, Lisa Morgan said as she entered the room. We've learned that bitter can be beautiful. Sweet things are nice, but they don't challenge us. Coffee wakes us up, makes us think. Krex picked up his mug with one of his 4 hands and drank deeply. He paused, then drank again. This is, interesting. It makes my mind feel sharper. Exactly. Jake smiled. Now you wanted to learn about our species. Where would you like to start? The 3 days Jake had bargained for turned into a week, then 2 weeks. The aliens found themselves drawn into human life in ways they had never expected. Their mothership remained in orbit, but the diplomats barely noticed it anymore. Ben Carter arrived on the 3rd day, carrying a canvas and a box of paints. He was a local artist from Colorado Springs, a quiet man with paint-stained fingers and gentle eyes. Jake had asked him to come show the aliens how humans created art. Art is not logical, Zethkar observed as Ben set up his easel. It serves no practical purpose. That's true, Ben agreed, but it serves the soul. Watch. The artist began to paint the mountain landscape visible through the window, but as he worked, he changed things. He made the sky more orange than it really was. He added clouds that weren't there. He painted trees in colors that didn't exist in nature. You are painting incorrectly, Zethkar said. The mountains are not that color. Ben paused and smiled. I'm not painting what I see. I'm painting what I feel. This is how the mountains look to me when the sun sets after a good day. But it is wrong, the Valthian insisted. Is it? Ben asked. Come here. Try it yourself. He handed Zethkar a brush loaded with bright yellow paint. The alien diplomat stared at it as if it might bite him. I cannot create incorrectly, Zethkar said. My species values perfection. There is no incorrect in art, Ben replied. There's only expression. What do you feel when you look at these mountains? Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. Then, very carefully, he touched the brush to the canvas. He made a single yellow stroke across the painted sky. It looked like lightning or maybe a shooting star. I feel distant, he said quietly, like I am very far from home. Then paint that, Ben encouraged. While Zethkar discovered art, Quilin found herself drawn to Amy Rodriguez, a counselor who worked with trauma victims in the nearby town. Amy had lost her husband in a car accident 2 years earlier, but had chosen to help others deal with their own grief. I do not understand, Quilin said as they sat in Amy's small office. You experienced terrible pain, yet you chose to surround yourself with more pain by helping others who suffer. Amy poured tea from a simple ceramic pot. At first, I wanted to run from the pain. I thought if I could avoid it, I could avoid feeling it. But pain doesn't work that way, it follows you. My species learned to eliminate such inefficient emotions long ago, Quilin said. We do not experience grief or sorrow or despair. What about joy? Amy asked. Do you experience that? Quilin paused. We experience satisfaction when tasks are completed efficiently. That's not the same thing, Amy said gently. Joy comes from connection, from love, from hope. But you can't have those without also accepting the possibility of loss. It seems illogical to choose pain. We don't choose pain, Amy explained. We choose to live fully, knowing that pain might come. And when it does, we use it to become stronger, wiser, more compassionate. My husband's death taught me how precious life is. It made me want to help others find their way through darkness. That afternoon, Quilin watched Amy counsel a young woman whose brother had died in military service. The alien diplomat saw something she had never witnessed before. She saw the human woman's pain transform into strength, saw grief become a bridge between two people who had never met but shared a common wound. For the first time in her long life, Quilin felt something that might have been hope. Meanwhile, Krex found himself paired with Tony Blake, a mechanic who worked on the base's vehicles. Tony was a big man with calloused hands and a quick laugh. He had served in the military, but now spent his days fixing things that were broken. Want to see something cool? Tony asked the four-armed alien. He led Krex to a damaged helicopter that had been brought in for repair. This machine is beyond repair, Krex observed. It would be more efficient to destroy it and build a new one. Maybe, Tony agreed. But that's not how we do things here. We fix what's broken. We make it work again. He showed Krex how to use the tools, how to carefully remove damaged parts and replace them with new ones. The alien's 4 arms made him surprisingly good at the work, and soon he was helping Tony rebuild the helicopter's engine. Why do you do this work? Krex asked as they worked side by side. Someone has to, Tony replied. And I'm good at it. Plus, there's something satisfying about taking something that's broken and making it whole again. In my culture, broken things are discarded. Weak things are eliminated. Tony paused and looked at the alien warrior. What happens to your people when they get old, or sick, or hurt? Krex was quiet for a moment. They are recycled. Their useful parts are harvested for the strong. That's not strength, Tony said quietly. That's waste. Real strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. Real strength is making sure nobody gets left behind. That evening, the 3 alien diplomats gathered in their shared quarters. They had been on Earth for 2 weeks, and each felt strange changes happening inside themselves. I painted today, Zethkar said quietly. I painted something that was not perfect, and it felt good. I felt sadness today, Quilin admitted. And somehow that sadness connected me to something larger than myself. I fixed something today instead of destroying it, Krex said. And I think I am beginning to understand what humans call honor. High above them, their mothership waited in the darkness of space. The Galactic Confederation expected their diplomats to return soon with news of Earth's surrender. But the three aliens sitting in the small underground room were beginning to realize that they might never be able to go home again. They were becoming something new, something their species had never imagined possible. They were becoming human. 3 weeks had passed since the alien diplomats arrived on Earth. What was supposed to be a simple 3-day negotiation had turned into something none of them expected. The changes in the three aliens were becoming impossible to hide. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood in her laboratory, explaining human scientific methods to the alien visitors. On the table before them lay the remains of dozens of failed experiments. Broken devices, burnt circuits, and notebooks filled with crossed-out equations covered every surface. "This is your scientific process?" Zethkar asked, picking up a device that had clearly exploded at some point. "It appears highly inefficient." "That's the point," Lisa said with a smile. "We learn more from our failures than our successes. Each mistake teaches us something new." "My people do not make mistakes," Zethkar replied, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. "We calculate all possibilities before we act." "Then how do you discover things you didn't know were possible?" Lisa asked. "How do you find solutions to problems you've never encountered?" She showed them a wall covered with photographs. Each picture showed a different human invention or discovery. The airplane, the telephone, the computer, medicines that saved millions of lives. Every one of these started with someone failing, Lisa explained. The Wright brothers crashed dozens of times before they flew. Edison tested thousands of materials before he found one that worked in a light bulb. We embrace failure because it leads us to success. Quilin studied the photographs with growing fascination. "Your species deliberately pursues uncertainty. We pursue knowledge," Lisa corrected. "And knowledge requires questions. Questions require admitting we don't know everything." "The Meridian Collective knows all that is required," Quilin said, but she sounded less sure than before. "Really?" Lisa asked. "Then why are you here? Why send diplomats to study a primitive species if you already know everything about us?" Quilin had no answer. That afternoon, Jake Sullivan took the three aliens to meet Pastor Dan Wright at the small church in the nearby town. Dan was an elderly man with kind eyes and hands that shook slightly from age. He had agreed to talk with the aliens about human beliefs. "You worship invisible beings?" Krex asked, looking around the simple church with its wooden pews and stained glass windows. "We have faith in things we cannot see," Dan replied. "Love, hope, forgiveness. These things are real even though we cannot touch them." "Faith is illogical," Zethkar observed. "Belief without evidence serves no purpose." "Doesn't it?" Dan asked. "Faith gives us strength when we have none. Hope helps us continue when everything seems lost. Forgiveness allows us to heal from wounds that might otherwise destroy us." He told them about his own life, how he had lost his son in a war, how anger had consumed him for years, how he had finally learned to forgive even those who had caused his pain. "I could have spent my life hating," Dan said quietly. "But hate would have killed me from the inside. Forgiveness set me free." "Your son is still dead," Krex pointed out harshly. "Forgiveness changed nothing." "It changed me," Dan replied. "And that changed everything." Later that evening, Maria Santos arrived at the facility. She was a school teacher who had taught for 30 years in the local elementary school. She brought with her a box of drawings made by her students. "These are pictures of the future," she explained, spreading the colorful drawings across the conference table. "I asked my students to draw what they think the world will look like when they grow up." The alien diplomats stared at the drawings in confusion. Children had drawn flying cars, cities in the clouds, robots helping with homework, and people of all different colors living together in peace. "These children will never see most of these things," Quilin observed. "Why do they waste time imagining impossible futures?" "Because someone has to dream before someone else can build," Maria replied. "My students today will be the scientists, artists, and leaders of tomorrow. Their dreams today become reality in 20 or 30 years. But you will not be alive to see it," Zethkar said. "That's the point," Maria smiled. "I teach not for myself, but for a future I'll never see. That's what humans do. We plant trees whose shade we'll never enjoy. Why? Krex asked. What benefit do you receive? The knowledge that the world will be better because I was here, Maria replied. That my life mattered, that love continues even after I'm gone. That night, the 3 alien diplomats received an urgent message from their mothership. The communication came through their private channels, bypassing human monitoring systems. Report your status immediately, the voice commanded. The Confederation. Council is concerned about your prolonged absence. You were to complete negotiations in 3 days. Zethkar looked at his companions before responding. The situation is more complex than anticipated. We require additional time to fully understand human capabilities. Unacceptable. You will return to the ship immediately for debriefing. New negotiators will be sent to complete the mission. No, Quilin said suddenly, surprising everyone, including herself. We need more time. The humans have shown us things we did not expect. Explain. Krex stepped forward. They are not as primitive as we believed. Their methods are unusual, but effective. Are they capable of resistance? The 3 aliens looked at each other. Finally, Zethkar spoke. They are capable of things we do not understand. Things that might be valuable to the Confederation, such as they create beauty from imperfection. They find strength in vulnerability. They sacrifice for those they will never meet. They transform pain into wisdom. There was a long silence from the mothership. When the voice returned, it was cold and suspicious. You are exhibiting signs of cultural contamination. Return immediately for psychological evaluation. We are not contaminated, Quilin said firmly. We are learning. Learning what? That there are things more important than efficiency. That there are kinds of strength we never imagined. That connection is more valuable than perfection. The communication ended abruptly. High above them, the mothership began preparing extraction protocols. But in the underground facility, 3 alien diplomats sat together and realized they had discovered something that would change them forever. They had found what humans called hope, and they could not give it up. Outside, the Colorado stars shone down on a world that was about to face its greatest test. The Galactic Confederation was losing patience, and humanity's time was running out. But for the first time since their arrival, the 3 alien diplomats were not thinking about conquest or compliance. They were thinking about home, and wondering if they would ever be able to return to places that no longer felt like they belonged. The infection had spread too far to stop. The emergency sirens woke everyone at dawn. Jake Sullivan rushed to the command center, still pulling on his uniform. The screens showed 3 new ships descending from the massive alien vessel above Earth. These ships were different from the diplomatic vessels. They were smaller, faster, and covered in weapons. What's happening? Dr. Lisa Morgan asked as she entered behind him. Extraction teams, Jake replied grimly. They're coming for their diplomats. In their quarters, the 3 alien diplomats felt the familiar hum of their species' technology. Zethkar stood at the window watching the ships approach. His hands trembled slightly as he held a small painting he had finished the night before. It showed Earth's sunrise, but painted in colors that existed only in his imagination. They have come for us, Quilin said quietly. She sat on the bed holding a letter written by Amy Rodriguez. The counselor had given it to her the day before, explaining how humans said goodbye to those they loved. We cannot go back, Krex stated simply. He wore a small pin on his chest that Tony Blake had given him. It showed 2 hands clasped together, a symbol of human friendship. Why not? Zethkar asked, though he already knew the answer. Because we are no longer who we were, Quilin replied. I can feel emotions now. Real emotions, not just the artificial calm my people programmed into me. I cannot return to a life without feeling. I have learned to create, Zethkar said, looking at his painting. I have made something that did not exist before, something that came from inside me. My people will see this as a defect. They will try to repair me. I have learned honor, Krex added. I understand now that strength means protecting others, not conquering them. The Gornaki will consider me weak. A knock came at their door. Jake Sullivan entered, followed by Sheriff Kate Murphy from the nearby town. Kate was a tough woman who had served as a police officer for 20 years. She had volunteered to help when Jake explained the situation. "The extraction teams are landing," Jake said. "You don't have to go with them." "We have no choice," Zethkar replied. "They are our people." "No," Kate said firmly. "Your people are the ones who accept you as you are, the ones who helped you grow, the ones who showed you what you could become." "She's right," a new voice said from the doorway. Dr. Rick Fisher entered the room. He was a psychiatrist who had spent the last week talking with the alien diplomats about their changing identities. "You've become something new, something your original societies cannot understand or accept. But where do we belong?" Quilin asked. "We are no longer truly Meridian, Velthian, or Gornaki, but we are not human either." "You belong wherever you choose to belong," Rick replied. "Identity isn't something that's given to you. It's something you create for yourself." Outside, the extraction ships had landed. Heavily armed soldiers emerged, wearing armor that gleamed like mirrors. They moved with mechanical precision toward the facility entrance. "Attention, human facility," a voice boomed from their ships. "Surrender the diplomatic personnel immediately. They are suffering from severe psychological contamination and require immediate medical intervention." Jake grabbed his radio. "This is Commander Sullivan. The diplomats are free to leave whenever they choose, but they're also free to stay if that's what they want. The diplomats are no longer capable of making rational decisions. They have been infected with dangerous human concepts. Stand aside or face the consequences." Kate Murphy stepped forward, her hand resting on her weapon. "I've been a cop for 20 years. I know the difference between someone who needs help and someone who's found themselves. These folks found themselves." More people began arriving at the facility. Ben Carter came with his painting supplies. Amy Rodriguez brought some of her other clients. Tony Blake arrived with a group of mechanics from the base. Maria Santos came with several of her fellow teachers. Pastor Dan Wright walked slowly with his cane, but his eyes were determined. "What are you all doing here?" Jake asked. "Same thing you are," Ben replied. "Standing up for our friends." The extraction teams reached the facility entrance. Their leader, a tall figure in silver armor, spoke through a translator device. "We are here to retrieve 3 diplomatic personnel. They have been compromised by exposure to human memetic hazards. Surrender them now." "They're not prisoners," Jake replied. "They're guests. If they want to leave, they can walk out that door right now." The alien commander looked confused. "Guests? They are Confederation citizens. They belong to us." "Nobody belongs to anybody else," Kate said firmly. "That's one of the first things we learned as humans. Everyone has the right to choose their own path." Inside the facility, the 3 diplomats could hear the argument outside. They looked at each other with new understanding. "We have a choice," Zethkar said with wonder. "We actually have a choice." "I choose to stay," Quilin said without hesitation. "I choose to feel. I choose to hope. I choose to help others heal from their pain. I choose to create," Zethkar added. "I choose to make beautiful things even if they are not perfect. I choose to express what is inside me." "I choose to protect," Krek said. "I choose to use my strength to help others, not to dominate them. I choose honor over conquest." They walked together toward the exit. As they stepped outside, they faced their extraction teams. The soldiers raised their weapons, but the 3 diplomats held up their hands. "We are grateful for your concern," Zethkar said formally, "but we choose to remain on Earth." "You are not thinking clearly," the extraction commander replied. "You have been infected with human irrationality. You must return for treatment." "We have been infected with something," Quilin agreed. "We have been infected with hope, with love, with the knowledge that we can be more than what we were created to be. We choose to remain," Krek stated. "We choose to become citizens of Earth." The extraction commander raised his weapon. "Then you are no longer citizens of the Confederation. You are enemies of galactic order." "So be it," the 3 said together. That moment, every human present stepped forward. They formed a circle around the three alien diplomats. Ben Carter, Amy Rodriguez, Tony Blake, Maria Santos, Pastor Dan Wright, Sheriff Kate Murphy, Dr. Rick Fisher, Jake Sullivan, and Lisa Morgan. They linked arms and faced the extraction teams together. "You want them?" Jake called out. "You'll have to go through all of us." The extraction commander looked at the circle of humans protecting the three aliens. He had never seen anything like it before. Beings of different species, choosing to risk their lives for each other. "This is highly irregular," he said finally. "This is human," Jake replied. High above them, the mothership received the report. The Galactic Confederation faced something they had never encountered before. 3 of their citizens had chosen to abandon their own species for another, and that other species was willing to fight to protect them. For the first time in its history, the Confederation had lost citizens not to death or conquest, but to love. The war for Earth was about to begin. The standoff lasted 3 hours. The extraction teams held their weapons pointed at the circle of humans protecting the 3 alien diplomats. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The tension was so thick it felt like breathing through water. Then something unexpected happened. The massive mothership above Earth began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was not for the humans, it was for the entire galaxy. "Attention all Confederation worlds. We are declaring Earth a Category 5 mimetic hazard. The planet contains dangerous ideas that can permanently alter the psychological structure of any being exposed to them. All contact with this world is forbidden." Jake Sullivan listened to the message through his earpiece. He looked at the 3 alien diplomats standing in the center of the human circle. "They're afraid of us," he said with amazement. "The most powerful alliance in the galaxy is afraid of what we might teach them." The extraction commander received new orders through his own communication device. His mechanical voice announced the decision. "By order of the Confederation Council, this planet is now under quarantine. No ships may leave. No ships may enter. You will be isolated until the contamination dies out." "How long?" Dr. Lisa Morgan asked. "Forever," the commander replied. "But," Jake Sullivan smiled, "that's fine with us. We never wanted to conquer the galaxy anyway. We just wanted to be left alone to live our lives." The extraction teams began retreating toward their ships. The 3 alien diplomats watched their own people abandon them. "Are you afraid?" Quillen asked the humans around her. "Terrified," Sheriff Kate Murphy admitted. "But we've been afraid before. We'll figure it out." "We always do," added Tony Blake. The extraction ships lifted off and returned to the mothership. Something wonderful happened. The 3 alien diplomats were no longer aliens. They had become something new. They had become the first members of a species that had never existed before. They had become Earth's children by choice rather than birth. The weeks that followed were challenging but hopeful. The quarantine meant that Earth was cut off from galactic trade and communication, but it also meant they were free to develop, in their own way, at their own pace. Zethkar opened an art school in Colorado Springs. He taught humans how to paint with colors that didn't exist in nature, and humans taught him how to express emotions he was still learning to feel. His paintings became famous across Earth for their alien beauty and deeply human heart. Quillen became a counselor, working alongside Amy Rodriguez. She used her natural empathic abilities to help people heal from trauma and loss. Her unique perspective as someone who had lived without emotions helped her understand the precious value of human feelings. Krex joined the local fire department. His 4 arms and incredible strength made him perfect for rescue work. He saved lives regularly, and each person he helped understood what he had learned from Tony Blake. True strength meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. 1 year after the quarantine began, Jake Sullivan stood in the same field, where the alien ships had first landed. But now it looked different. The aliens had helped humans build new technologies that combined the best of both civilizations. Clean energy powered the cities. Medical advances saved lives every day. Art and music flourished like never before. "Any regrets?" Lisa Morgan asked as she joined him. "About what?" being cut off from the galaxy, never knowing what's out there among the stars. Jake looked up at the night sky, where the alien mothership still waited silently in orbit. The galaxy cut itself off from us, not the other way around. We offered them friendship, and they chose fear instead. Do you think they'll ever change their minds? Maybe. Probably not the current generation, but ideas have a way of spreading, even through quarantines, especially ideas about freedom and hope and the right to choose who you want to become. As if summoned by his words, 3 figures approached across the field. Zethkar carried a painting of Earth as seen from space. Quilin walked beside a young woman she was counseling. Krex wore his firefighter uniform, still dusty from a rescue earlier that day. We received a message today, Zethkar announced, from the Meridian homeworld. What kind of message? Jake asked. A secret one, Quilin explained. From young Meridians who have heard stories about what happened here. They want to know if the stories are true. They want to know if it's really possible to feel emotions and still be strong. What did you tell them? We told them the truth, Krex said. We told them that we were stronger now than we had ever been before. We told them that love doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. And they believed you? Some did, Quilin smiled. And those some will tell others. Ideas spread, Jake. Even dangerous ideas, especially dangerous ideas. Over the following months, more secret messages arrived. Young Gornaki asking about honor, Valthian artists wondering about imperfection, members of a dozen other species curious about these strange human concepts like hope and forgiveness and sacrifice for others. The Galactic Confederation had tried to contain Earth's influence by quarantining the planet, but they had forgotten something important about ideas. Ideas don't need ships to travel between worlds. They don't need permission from governments or councils. They spread from mind to mind, heart to heart, one conversation at a time. 5 years after the quarantine began, the first defector arrived. A young Meridian diplomat stole a ship and crash-landed in the same Colorado field. She emerged from the wreckage asking for asylum, asking to learn about emotions, asking to become human. 6 months later, 2 more arrived, then 5, then dozens. The Galactic Confederation discovered something they had never considered. You cannot quarantine hope. You cannot contain love. You cannot stop beings from wanting to be free. Earth had lost access to the galaxy, but Earth had won something more valuable. Earth had become a beacon, a place where any being from any world could come to discover what they might become if they had the courage to choose. Jake Sullivan, now older and graying, stood in the same field where it all began. Around him, hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds lived and worked and created together. The field had become a city. The city had become a symbol. And somewhere among the stars, more ships were quietly heading toward Earth. Ships full of dreamers, and artists and rebels. Ships full of beings who had heard the most dangerous story in the galaxy. The story that said anyone could choose to become human. Anyone could choose to become free.